Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and this is the carry tier list for patch 7.39c. And yeah, I get it, they're probably going to patch it this week or next, but whatever. You never know with Valve, so I figured why don't we just get this tier list in here and do the tier list this week. And if they patch it, so be it. You know my tier lists always summon a patch anyway. So let's just hop into it. The first hero in the S tier for the carry is going to be Nature's Prophet. And I don't know if you saw my last tier list like a month or so ago in the last patch, but I had Nature's Prophet fairly down low. I think it was maybe even like D or C tier. And I was like, finally, this hero's gone now that they changed the facet and they took away that giant treant and they gave, this weird Nature's Prophet one, which is just not good and no one picks it. And then they gave this Soothing Saplings one, which is just like, oh, is that more a support facet? People were kind of picking that for a while, but then everyone realized, oh, wait, you can actually just use this in the lane anyway. And you don't really have to care about the fact that Nature's Call doesn't have this giant treant late, and you can just have a great laning stage, and this hero's still an amazing right clicker. That's pretty much the long and short of it. Now everyone's like, yeah, wait, this hero's actually still great, and you can actually still just TP around the map and farm the entire thing and show up anywhere and do everything you were doing before. I don't know why we thought that just because the treant was nerfed that it was bad. So that's kind of the long and short of this hero, is it's still broken. You can still click 1,000 miles per hour. You have a really good laning stage with this facet, which you're taking every time now. No one takes this. And you can still TP in the giant map everywhere you want to be to farm everywhere, split push, do all those same things. So that's kind of the long and short. It was S tier, got nerfed a bit, with the facet change, went down to maybe C tier or something. People were like, it's not good anymore. And then they were like, wait, it actually is still very, very good. And then next we have kind of a similar-ish story where Shadow Fiend was great as a right-clicker like a year or two ago and then got nerfed a little bit, kind of disappeared, and now is just right back to where Shadow Fiend was before, where it's very popular again, with a lot of other things getting nerfed and this getting buffed. But the funny thing is, it's the same exact build, basically, as it was before. And what I mean by that is you're still picking Lasting Presence, obviously, if you're going carry Shadow Fiend. And you're still probably skilling stats instead of Feast of Souls, even though they tried to buff this ability like 10 times since that patch a year or two ago when you were just not skilling this. People still aren't picking it. Now, if you go to Dota 2 Pro Tracker, if you look at the pro builds, there will be some games where they do take this occasionally. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still funny that no matter what they do, it's kind of how I've been complaining about patches. You probably know, by now that I complain about the patches, but it's just funny that they've tried to buff this and they still over like a year or two have not buffed it to the point where it's even viable to pick over stats. I just find that hilarious. But anyway, yeah, it's just the same thing that Shadow Fiend's been doing for a while, and the fact that Shadow Raise is a great laning stage ability, even just one level in it, and then you end up just clicking for 1 billion damage. And if you do go for this, that attack speed is pretty significant as well, and you just take towers and you can kind of snowball with your team, having a good team fight ultimate. All the same stuff Shadow Fiend has been doing now for a while. There's really not too much different here. It's just that, other things have got nerfed. People have kind of brought Shadow Fiend back. I think it was always similar to Nature's Prophet in the last month. It's just Nature's Prophet had that kind of really good, bad, then really good in 1 month, where Shadow Fiend almost had that in a year or two. And I think people just realized that the nerfs weren't actually that big. And even at the time, I was like, these nerfs don't seem that big. And now it's slowly beginning buffed as other things get nerfed. And also ranged carries are pretty big right now. So yeah, just Shadow Fiend, Nature's Prophet, those are the big ones. And then the best traditional melee carry is still Ursa. If you saw the last tier list a couple patches ago, Ursa was very, very good and is still very good. You can pick both facets, actually. People are, experimenting or picking this, and it still has a decent win rate. But I think, for the most part, you're still probably taking Bear down. But, it just does all the things that Ursa has done for a while. There's really not too much that has been changed. Just other things have been changed around this hero, while this hero still stays at the top of the meta. Now, in pro games, it's really not as popular, mainly because this isn't as big of a threat late game, in the sense that it's hard to take towers and take base, and the enemy can just stall out and that kind of stuff, and you're also committing to one hero. But this is just such a good pub hero, and it just has been for so long. You're going Battle Fury, you're going Blink, but again, even in pubs, you do have to worry about, I always say this, taking towers, but you just have so many different builds to go now with just like the full, always being unkillable, Earthshock, and Rage. Maybe you could take this if you wanted to use that build where you're just like building up a ton of damage. You can obviously go for this one, which is the default. You get your late game talents, which the 3 overpower attacks is very, very good for taking buildings. That's the thing. So like if you have trouble taking buildings, having those 3 overpower attacks just amps up your damage a lot. And if you go something like MKB, just to amp up more damage even, you can start taking buildings a little bit faster, and so it doesn't make this hero have as big of an issue super late game with taking buildings. It's just kind of that weird like 25-30 minute to like 45-minute timing where you're not getting level 25 yet, that you have this weird awkward like, okay, we keep winning team fights, I have 25 kills, but I actually haven't taken their base. That's the only weakness of the hero. Otherwise, you just can snowball out of control. Like the laning stage is so good all the time, very hard to kill, very hard to gank, blowing every hero up in the game, and then your talent tree, like I said, is very good all the way through, and you have multiple builds where you can go straight damage. You can, go for more defensive if you need to, if you feel like you're the only frontliner. And I think that's actually the biggest thing with this hero is the fact that you can go for straight damage, real carry, in terms of just going like MKB and BKB and Battle Fury and upgrading your Blink and going more damage items, or you can just go straight for like Octarine on Ags and all this other stuff. If you're just really the only frontliner and all you need to do is stay there just so you can hit a little bit and just be unkillable, and then everyone else on your team will do stuff. I think that makes this dynamic really good for just pubs in general because you can go both builds. So you can pick it into almost any situation and it will be viable. Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick second to remind you I'm streaming every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Links to my Twitch and Kick are in the description. Also, every Friday I host a 1v1 mid tournament where the winner gets $25 and a random viewer also gets $25. So don't forget to follow there. Also, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and now let's get back to the video. Then moving on to A tier, we have Monkey King, and this hero is just good all around. It is pretty good in pros, mainly because they can go carry or go mid. I think it's been a little bit more popular mid in general, but that's kind of just like the pro scene. In pubs, I think overall it is a decent hero. They did kind of change the one facet now, so if you're going for the carry version, you can pick that facet, which I always forget what it's called. Changing of the guard, where now you can transform into one of your soldiers. I think that is pretty good in many different situations. Obviously, if you want the mid Monkey King, which we're not talking about here in the carry list, that other one is probably better. But with the carry version, that just makes you a little bit extra, have more survivability in your ult, which you don't always need, but sometimes if you're having a tough game or if people are blowing you up in your ult and it feels like you can't even do anything in your ult, this just makes it even better to man fight people in your ult. And I think just overall, it is a solid hero because you can scale really well into the late game. You can have really good laning stages. You can participate early if you need to, or you can go for a more like Battle Fury type build if you want. You can have just kind of the same way that Ursa has different ways of building. Monkey King has so many varieties of going like full farm, just heavy, scaling, or going more like diffusal and fighting and that kind of stuff. And so you do have to kind of know what you're doing, know which build to go based on the matchups. But in that sense, I think it is definitely worth the A tier here. Then next we have Jug, and I'm just going to give my opinion on Jug. It's such a weird hero, and I think this is one of those heroes where it almost hasn't even really been buffed much. It almost gets nerfs sometimes too, and I feel like it doesn't deserve it because it felt like for a long time Jug was just like C tier or something. Like it was, you could pick it in pubs, but we're like, Jug is not good because the top MMR players are not playing Jug and they're not picking it in pros like ever. And then the whole thing happened where all the like top 8.5K plus or whatever replays, you can't see them anymore. And, Dota 2 Pro Tracker now only tracks like the lower level immortals. And we kind of see like, wait, actually Jug seems to be a really good pub hero, and just always is because it is so independent. You can always have a good laning stage. You can get aggressive in very aggressive matchups. You can be defensive if you need to. You're always going to get your farm. You can TP spin out in a lot of different situations. You can almost solo Roche, and you can go high ground with your ward. You have a bunch of different ways to play the hero and build the hero, just kind of like I said with Monkey King and stuff. I think overall that independent nature of Jug allows this hero to be just really good in pubs overall. And so we're seeing ever since that patch where they changed the top tier of players not really exposing the meta, or we're not really basing everything off of them, that the lower you go, the more viable Jug is. And I think that's always sort of been the case, but we just kind of see it more now just playing out in terms of win rate and pick rate and stuff like that, that people are like, oh wait, we can definitely play this hero, and it's pretty good at almost all MMRs. Maybe, yeah, when you get to 10K, it's not the best, but you could probably reliably spam Jug in most patches, and for the last 10-15 years, it's probably always been the case that this is a generally reliable hero in most games. So like if you want to learn carry, or if you want to have just a decent overall carry pick, you can totally pick Jug. And if you go to Dota 2 Pro Tracker now, like it's like one of the best carries. That's like a 56% win rate. Like it's pretty good. It's not doing anything crazy different than Jug's been doing for a while. It's just a pretty good hero overall. And then we have Abaddon. Ever since the patch a couple of patches ago where it got more like carry buffs, I was always expecting this to be a pretty good carry, and it's not really been S tier, but it is pretty good. It is A tier, definitely deserves it. I think even in the last tier list, I had it up here too. It's not like outshining or outclassing everything, but it's just right up there as a decent carry, just alongside all these other, melee carries. It's not as popular, but it does have a very, very good win rate. I think it definitely deserves it. And if anything, I think it might be a little bit underrated. I think, maybe a year ago or whenever that was, it was kind of getting spammed a lot as a carry and getting played a bunch, and then it had some nerfs. And then, like I said, in the recent big patch, it did get buffs that I think have it deserving being a decent carry. I think it's a little bit underlooked at or underrated in some ways. And then we have Medusa. This hero just always seems to come back into the meta. Like, they just nerf it a bunch. They get rid of it. They try to say, go away, Medusa. And, Medusa goes back down to B or C tier for a little bit and then creeps her way back up. And now she's back up here with a great win rate again. Not broken, I would say. But still, I think just the fundamental kit of what Medusa does is just something where it's like, will this ever really be bad? Like, as long as the hero does damage and can farm and can scale well, which this hero can still do, then it's going to be good. You know what I mean? Like, just having that mana, being super tanky, being annoying, that's going to be good. Like, even if you reduce the amount of mana the hero has, or you get rid of the offlane build, which was like a meme anyway. It was good, but it was just like, yeah, sure, get rid of that. It's still going to be a good carry. Like, it just is. And I don't know that it's ever going to go away fundamentally because of how the kit works, because of how the mana works and the tankiness works. The only way I see it going away is if you actually have, like, they cut the mana in half or something absurd, like, or they double the damage that the mana takes, or if for whatever reason you just can't scale into the late game anymore, then maybe it will be dead. Maybe it will be D tier or C tier for like ever. But other than that, I think they can nerf it a bunch and it will still end up coming back to A tier in the next patches. I just think that's one of those kinds of heroes where the way it's designed, it's always going to be good. Then we have TA. This is one of those weird ones where I feel like this hero is getting picked a decent bit, but it actually has like a less than 50% win rate in a lot of pubs, but it is picked enough that I think people sometimes don't know how to play TA and take advantage of her strengths. She also does fall off a little bit late game, which also isn't great for pubs. Like, she gets farmed super quickly, does a ton of damage, but then late game, it can feel a little bit underwhelming where she gets kind of outclassed by other carries. But also in pros, it's a very popular hero. So I think that, and Hayama and stuff like that. So I think it definitely deserves A tier, despite the fact that pubs, you can, if you're a good TA player, you can totally stomp with it, 100%. But I think the win rate gets tanked a little bit because people sometimes pick it thinking they're going to have an easy game and they don't really know what they're doing, and then they have trouble. And people think, oh, I can just do a ton of damage, I can get Deso, I can just hit people. But it's really about traps and farming and all that kind of stuff and making this hero super efficient. That's what you need to be good at to make TA work. Then we have Weaver. I think ranged heroes right now, like I said, you look up here, Nature's Prophet, Shadow Fiend, you have Medusa coming back, TA's good. I think Weaver's another good ranged hero. I think this is one that it's sort of in the class of Abaddon where I think people don't pick it a ton. It's not like picked every game. People don't really notice it as like, oh, I'm seeing Weaver all the time, but it is good. I definitely think it having also two ways of building, which I actually personally like going Deso and going more for like the just do insane amounts of right click damage, but you can totally go for more Maelstrom and that kind of stuff, or even a mana burn with Diffusal. You can go for these builds as well. So having that different flexibility definitely helps with the hero. It has a good laning stage. You can absolutely stomp the lane. You can participate a bunch in the game. You can also secure your farm, split push. You can kind of do everything you want on a ranged hero. It's just, there are certain matchups in certain games where you might just feel like you can't really get in there and click like you want to. So that's the only problem that Weaver has, and it is a little bit skill-based in terms of positioning and really taking advantage of what you can do without feeding. So that's why I think it's not as popular. It's like you have to really know what you're doing on Weaver, but it can absolutely stomp games if you know what you're doing. Then we have Drow. This one is, and I put these heroes over here because these are heroes that are either really popular in pubs or really popular in pro and not the other way around. So I think like in pros, Drow Ranger is completely ignored. Nobody even cares about it. But I think in pubs, this hero is like kind of broken. Like because these ranged heroes are good, I think that this hero can have a dominant laning stage. It can absolutely just destroy games. Like it's one of those heroes that you can never count out because if you get some of your items and they, you know, the enemy throws high ground or something, you can always come back, or vice versa. Like if the enemy has a Drow, you just have to be careful going high ground. You have to jump her. You have to get on top of her. Like you have to get vision in their base because if you let this hero click, if she has like even 3 items, you will die. That's the thing. So obviously in pros, they're way more coordinated. They can get on top of her. They can kill her very easily. She's squishy. She has a hard time getting away from things. I mean, she does have a couple ways to get out of sticky situations, but not a ton. But you know, in pubs, it's a lot more difficult to get that coordination. If you feel like as a Drow, you're having problems, you can buy Shadow Blade. You can buy so many different things that make it so annoying for the enemy. And if you're really, really good at positioning, you will just delete every hero on the map. Like you will win a not 1v1 necessarily, not like a man fight, but in terms of like scaling, this hero probably scales better than any hero in the game if you are allowed to hit. And that's the thing, it's always if you can hit, if you can actually click without getting jumped on, without getting killed. This hero will just absolutely destroy. And so that's why I think it's really good in pubs, because like I said, they're not going to coordinate as much to jump on her or like actually bring her down as easily. Then we have Spectre, another one that is kind of not super popular in pros, but is pretty good in pubs. And I think this hero just is great in pubs because if you scale into the late game, you will dominate and you will always be good. You could make an argument that maybe with the win rate and pick rate, it deserves to be B. I don't know. I personally think that it's A. I think it's just great. Has a weak laning stage. If you don't get off or out of the lane with any kind of item or ramp up, or you don't get a quick Orchid, or Blade Mail doesn't do much, you know, you can have a struggle or really not do much for 20, 25 minutes other than just clicking R on people. That can happen in games. But like I said, in pubs, it's just a matter of time that the game is just going to delay. The enemy's just going to, you know, do stupid stuff. You're going to get your Manta. You're going to get your third item. You're going to get 4 or 5 items. And then all of a sudden, it's 50 minutes. The enemy was just, you know, messing around for a while, didn't end the game, and now you're a beast and you come back and you win, even in those losing games where you have a tough time. Like, that's going to happen in a lot of different situations. And I just think this hero is so independent as well, because you can farm anywhere you want. You don't have to worry about what your team's doing, because you can always be there if you want. You're just passive in a way, like you're not expected to be at the tower, so it's kind of easy to play in that way as long as you avoid ganks. And then if you get your farm, if it gets to 45, 50 minutes, you will be insane. And that's just the long and short of the hero. So that's why I think in pubs, it's amazing. It's similar to like Jug in that way, and even Medusa, where like the kit is just so good that I think people are realizing that it almost can't be counted out no matter what nerfs it gets. And then Doom is the last one. This is kind of, I guess, it's not really a cheese pick. I usually put cheese picks last, but it's more that this hero is very good in the pro meta. People like it because it can pick, you know, they can play it carry, they can play it off lane, they can play it different places. It scales really well. You can have carries from the mid and the off lane that pair well with it. It just does a lot of different things, but I just don't think it's great in pubs. Like, you can pick it, you can get away with it. People are doing it, but I don't think it's great. And you can look at the win rate and pick rate as carry Doom is just not good in pubs for the most part. So I think that's one of those weird ones where it depends what you're doing the tier list for. Is this like purely pub tier list? Well, I would put Doom maybe even C tier in that case, maybe at B tier. But because pros are favoring it a lot, I still am keeping it in A, just like I had it in last match, because they are still picking it. So it's just one of those weird situations. Maybe you would argue that it's B or C tier, and I would kind of agree. It's kind of one of those awkward heroes to put on the list because you don't think of Doom as a traditional carry in the last few years anyway. So that's why I put it here, but that's why I wanted to talk about it there, because it's a little bit awkward. I wouldn't really recommend picking it in pubs for the most part. Then next we have middle of the road B tier, and we're starting off with PL. PL has had a big jump in win rate and pick rate ever since the new Ags. I was definitely wrong about that. I thought that, I was like, they took away the old Ags, they gave it this new one, it kind of sucked, they buffed it, and now I'm like, is this really going to do much? And I will say it has done a lot to make the hero a little bit more viable and a little bit better. It farms quicker, it is, you know, effective in fights and things like that. You might want to say that it's A tier. I kind of disagree. I'm putting it B tier. I think it's just not still where you'd want it to be in terms of, oh, it's really good, it's A, it's S. It's not there yet. So I'm putting it at B. And actually, I kind of like where it's at in a sense. Like, I'm not seeing it a ton. It's not like, you know, ruining pubs. It's not S tier. People are picking PL every single game. But it's enough that it's not like F tier, because it's been like F for a billion years. So I actually don't mind where it is right now. I kind of like it where it's at. Who knows what'll happen in the next patch, if it'll get completely ignored or if it'll get nerfed. I don't think it'll get buffed again, because I don't think anyone wants to actually see it be completely broken and take over the entire game. And like I said, you might even argue that it could be A tier, but I'm putting it B because I think it's still a little bit early to be like, yeah, this is absolutely good. I think it's not overrated. I think just B is right where it wants to be, right where it's at, right, the perfect spot for it, and just where I'd want PL to be in general. Pickable, like if you like playing PL, you can totally pick it and win, but not broken. I love where PL is at in terms of win rate and pick rate, in my personal opinion. And then we have Sven. I personally never believe in Sven. I have not believed in Sven as a hero since 3, 4, whatever years ago, when it was like the Ags, like the Dispel and the Jump In, and that was absolutely broken and people were picking that all the time. It's kind of come back in a way, but I still haven't like fully bought in. I just don't love Sven in general because of the fact that it's one of these heroes where you're farming super early and you have to take advantage of those timings. And if you don't, then you just fall off like a cliff, and it's just ridiculous. And I hate that. I hate that in pubs in general. Just as a carry player, I just do not like when I'm on a timing. It just feels so bad. And it's like an alchemist. It's like a TA in that way where late game, it just doesn't feel great. And I don't want to have that happen in a Sven game. And there are times where it feels like you farm and you still don't delete people. Like you have good farm, but for whatever reason, it's just the matchups or the tankiness of the enemy or whatever. It still takes like 6, 7, 8 hits to kill them. And that's like just not enough or whatever when you jump in. Like you just don't have enough time to kill them, to hit them, even if you have your ult, even if you have all these items. And that's the big problem. I don't love Sven because of that, but it is still good. I know I'm just like kind of shit talking Sven here. That's why I personally don't believe in the hero, but it is decent. It was almost like A tier or very, very good in the last patch. It's because people are realizing the shard and the Ags are decent. That does make it so you can stick on targets more. You can blow up the supports a little bit more, that kind of stuff. So it is good in that way. Don't get me wrong. And so I do think it does deserve B tier, but I personally don't love the hero just because of the timing that you're on. And then Terrorblade has kind of fallen off a bit. I would say that I was considering putting Terrorblade C tier, honestly, just because it has fallen off compared to what it was before with nerfs and stuff. But I still think it deserves B for the just, pub plus pro scene. I know that in the pros, I think in the last tournament, I think maybe it went like 1-7, which is why I was kind of considering, should I put it C tier? Honestly, I might even just adjust it and just adjust it down to C tier just because, but I don't know. I think it's still viable in pubs. It's still pretty good. I still think it's middle of the road because I don't think it was nerfed or was changed that much from where it was last patch when everyone was like picking it a ton and like winning a ton and it was like super popular. I don't think that it got like completely giga nerfed. I think maybe it just had a bad showing in the last pro tournament, and that, the win rate I think on this hero in pubs is not always great anyway because people don't know how to play it or they waste the spell. But I think it definitely deserves B tier. And then Morphling is just like one of these heroes that it's sort of like Medusa in that way where I feel like it never goes away. Even if it gets nerfed, people are still going to pick it to stomp in pubs. It's kind of like a Juggernaut where like no matter what the patch is, I feel like you could still viably pick Juggernaut. Same thing with Morphling. I think you could always still viably pick Morphling. And if you're good at Morphling specifically, you can just win games. That's why I think it deserves to be there. Anti-Mage and Slark and Life Stealer, I'll talk about all three specifically, but I think these are just like your classic carries that are B tier. I was considering putting Anti-Mage maybe C tier. I was considering Terrorblade and Anti-Mage to go C, but just with the way things were panning out, and I was looking at the win rates of these heroes and all these here, I was like, I still think they're a class above the heroes that I'm putting down here, so I still think they are B, but Anti-Mage has fallen off a lot in the last like few months. Same thing with Slark, just has fallen off a bit. It's obviously interesting that Medusa is on the rise and Anti-Mage is kind of on the decline a little bit, but obviously if there's a Medusa in the game, you can still pick Anti-Mage. It's just one of those that Medusa isn't popular enough as it was 6 months ago, where you're just going to be able to be like, okay, Medusa's getting picked all the time, so Anti-Mage is like just almost default good because it's the obvious counter. So that's not really happening as much, and it still does have its issues as well, which is like going the same build almost every game. I still don't think a different build for Anti-Mage is really that viable. I just don't believe it. Like you could go mid or do these other things and go for Diffusal and, go for Vanguard. I don't think that's viable from the carry. I just don't think you can do it. I think until that happens, Anti-Mage is not going to be like, one of the best heroes in the game. It's just always going to be in that mid tier. And then Slark just kind of been on the decline. It just keeps getting little nerfs, kind of like people just pecking at it, just taking little bits away here and there, especially from the shard. And then the support, I think that support build for Slark is just dead. I didn't, at first I liked it. Then they kind of nerfed it a little bit. Now I hate it. Even before they nerfed it, I kind of hated it. I tried it. I was like, no. And then those nerfs in general, just nerfing the hero overall, kind of nerfed the carry version as well, with the shard and stuff like that. And so I just think it's still viable, still good. I still don't mind the hero, but it's just not nearly as good in a lot of different situations. And then Lifestealer, kind of similar situation, was broken at one point, maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago. Then it's gotten small nerfs over time and it's just right there in the B tier. I think the biggest nerf to the hero happened not even in the recent patches, but before when they took away the disarm from the Ags. I think that's just like not killed the hero, but it really, really hurt the hero in terms of scaling into late game and matchups against carries. And so because of that, I mean, Ags is still very viable. You can pick it a lot. And this hero is still very good. That's why it's B tier, but it just kind of takes the hero down a notch. And then lastly, we have these two kind of ranged carries that are your typical farmers. I think they were right in B tier last time as well. I think they're pretty decent, Gyro and Luna. I think Medusa kind of went up a notch. And obviously we see all these ranged carries, Nature's Prophet, Shadow Fiend, TA, Weaver, Drow. These are all pretty good right now. These heroes, although they are ranged, they're like a different class of ranged heroes, if you know what I mean. Because their range is pretty close, and they're more of like these innate farmers that don't really build farming items in terms of like Maelstrom, Battle Fury, that kind of stuff. They just build like maybe Lifesteal, or, you know, they just get their Ags, and that's all they really need, and they kind of have close attack range, and they scale into late game with just a few items. Anyway, that's just like a different class, but they're still pretty good in the lane, being able to have reliable lanes and stuff like that. And it's just that kind of like stacking and farming stuff is just not as good as it was like maybe 4 to 6 months ago. And it's still just middle of the road, decent heroes, but not anything crazy, but not anything terrible. Then next we have C tier. These heroes are okay. They're kind of still pickable in pubs, but they're not great. I would say Faceless Void. I was debating putting him in B, but I just really don't love the hero. I think the hero's been bad for a long time. Yes, it still has late game potential and stuff like that, but people have more and more ways of dealing with that. I never liked the other facet. I think I always say that. I just have never liked that. That's never really been the carry build anyway, but after that was kind of nerfed, people were going back to Faceless Void and being like, is the carry still decent? I think maybe last time I put it in B tier because I think it was people were experimenting, having some success with it, but then recently I think it's just not been great overall. I think it just doesn't have a great pick rate, doesn't have a great win rate. I think it deserves C tier in terms of you can totally pick it. It does work in some matchups, but I just don't love the hero. There's so many other heroes, so many traditional carries that I'd rather pick instead of Faceless Void. And then we have Alchemist, and he's one of these heroes that I kind of like when he's in C tier or B tier, when it's like right in the middle, because you can totally pick an Alchemist. It's not a completely dead hero. It's not D or F. You know, it's not like this hero's absolute trash, but it's also not broken where you're seeing it every game. And it's like Alchemist is so good, gets so farmed, it just does ridiculous damage. You can't stop him. So I like when it's at the spot that it is. I just think it's a little bit worse than maybe it was in previous patches. But ever since they, you know, switched the facet and the passives and stuff like that and gave it that new ability and made it so that you're just automatically farming gold passively, and then you have that other ability that's good. And the shard is decent too. I think it's one of these situations where you can totally get away with picking Alchemist. It's just, it has a lot of bad matchups. And so because of that, it's, you know, C tier. That's why it's down here. And it doesn't always scale into the late game as good as some of these other heroes. Like even a hero like TA probably at times farms faster than an Alchemist, especially if TA is having a good laning stage. Alchemist can have good laning stages, but it can also get dumpstered in some lanes, and that's an issue. Not that TA can't, but you know what I mean. You can see what I'm saying is that Alchemist relies on being ahead in a lot of different situations. It just doesn't get ahead in a lot of those situations these days and has a lot of bad matchups, which is why it's down here at C tier. Then we have Marci, an okay carry, kind of a weird one. I know people were memeing on me for putting that Ags in like the bad tier or whatever if I don't like it. And I personally just don't like the Ags. I know you can buy it when you're a carry, and that's one of the things you kind of do go for as a carry, but I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, yeah, the silence is fine, but it's a lot of money to spend on something that I don't particularly love. And I think the fact that it's not the greatest carry, it's just like okay, it's like viable-ish, and you're probably going Battle Fury, I guess, if you're going for Marci carry. It's just one of those weird ones. It's almost like you'd rather just pick it as an off lane if you're going to go for this more like non-support, you know, core type of build. And then Lina is a ranged hero that you can go for the right clicks, but I think when you're going for that right click carry type of build, it just hasn't been good ever since the Maelstrom change and the Gleipnir change, because it's a very awkward buildup. You don't really know what path to take because you kind of want to get the Maelstrom, but then, you know, building that extra Maelstrom into Mjolnir, that doesn't feel great. So you probably want to go back for these other items. Then you have this weird Maelstrom sitting in your inventory. But if you don't go Maelstrom, what do you really even go? It's a little bit of an awkward build. And so that's why I feel like the carry version, the right click version of this hero is just not as viable. I'd rather pick the hero mid. And if you go carry, like you can go mid without going the full, you know, magic damage. You can go a mix of the two. And that's why I think it's a little bit better from the mid lane. Personally, I like it as a mid laner rather than a carry, just because the carry build I think is awkward, even though the mid, you know, magic damage build isn't the best anymore. And then we have Muerta, who is just, again, you can pick it. It is viable. It is a ranged hero. It has some good laning stages where you can dominate it at times. You can scale really well into the late game and just absolutely delete people, but then sometimes it feels like, you know, they just run away from your ultimate. It doesn't have very much impact. You can't get those clicks off. I think in pubs it is a little bit better because there's more chaos and stuff like that, where, you know, people commit to a fight and then you can just delete them. But sometimes it feels like you just don't do anything and they can just jump on top of you and kill you anyway, or even before you get your ult, or you waste it and that kind of stuff. I think the ult is just like way too small of a window. Like if you think about something like Terrorblade, you pop ult, you have a decent window to actually get stuff done. This hero, it's like, okay, when I click R, there better be like 3 people that I can kill like right now in the next 5 seconds, or my ult's like done and now I'm not a hero anymore. And that's the big problem. Then you have Clinkz. This hero is just kind of too squishy in a lot of different situations. It's almost like, okay, I'm picking Clinkz, but wouldn't I just rather have Drow if you think about it? Because see, here's the thing with Clinkz is you can run around and like I guess, split push, which you can't do with Drow. But other than that, it's like the same hero in a sense, where you're kind of squishy. You do a lot of like right-click damage from the back line, but if people jump on you, it is just very annoying. You have to run away, you have to get away, and you don't necessarily buy as many things. Like, you're just relying on your invis and your move speed to do that, maybe on, eating creeps and stuff like that. I just think in general it's just a way worse version of Drow in a lot of ways, even though I know it's a very different hero. But the thing that I don't like about Clinkz, and why I think it's definitely good in some situations. You can do a lot of damage. You can get an Orchid. You can get Deso. You can get these different items and delete people, and you can delete buildings. The problem with the hero is that it has two different builds that are like weird. It has like a right-click kind of ganking build where you go Orchid, and that almost feels like more of a mid build in a way. And then the carry build is more of like, Deso and stuff like that. People can get Maelstrom, but you don't want to get Maelstrom because the 15-minute shard, you have to wait till 15 minutes to get that, to farm. That's the whole awkward part of the hero, where like, years ago, it was more of that right-click gank by Orchid kind of style, split push. And then they changed it to be more of a buy Maelstrom, use what is now a shard ability, which was a main ability, to just split push and farm super quickly and just delete people with that ability. Now you have a combination of the two that don't really feel like they work in tandem all that well. But if you are able to have a good laning stage, you get your farm up, you can absolutely destroy games and delete towers and delete heroes, but it can be difficult, and you can honestly get jumped by a lot of different heroes these days and just absolutely melt. Then we have Kez. I think this hero is viable in pubs. I was debating putting it like D tier. I think I had it down there for a long, long time. But I said, you know what? I'm going to put it C, because I do know that if you are a good Kez player, you can absolutely destroy games. This hero still does delete people. It still does ridiculous amounts of damage if you know what you're doing, and it's hard to deal with. That is still true. It's just that there are situations where it is very, very squishy and just feels like you die in 3 seconds. And like, you have your ultimate, obviously, that you can use to like regen back up when people go on you. But later in the game, that feels like it's not enough to actually do what you need to do or survive. And so you're not as independent as you are for the first 30 minutes or 40 minutes of the game. And your damage is very good. But then, again, super late game, I don't know that your damage scales as well as some of these other heroes. So it's just a little bit of an awkward hero. And so that's why it deserves C tier. Maybe even deserved D tier. I could put it in there. I do want to see the hero buff for sure, because I feel like it's just been dead ever since they introduced it, basically. They had it out, it was bad, they buffed it for like a month and it was good, and now it's been dead for 6 months, so it's kind of annoying. Then we have two cheese picks. We have Broodmother. This is a cheese pick. You can totally pick it. It's kind of weird as a carry, but you can totally do it. Not too much to say about that. And then Meepo, I think, is okay. Again, you have to be a Meepo player. Is it a mid hero? Is it a carry hero? I think you can get away with both. I always say it's the shard and the ags that are the things that you have to be really good with to like make this viable. It's just kind of awkward when Meepo's your main carry. I think that's why it's C tier and not like a higher tier. It's just like, your damage, is it really going to do that well? You probably have to end the game in like 25, 30 minutes, and that's kind of the issue. And then we have D tier. These heroes aren't completely trash, but they're not very good. Bristleback has fallen completely off a cliff. It's like not even picked anymore as a carry. I think it was maybe even S tier last time, if not A tier. It's been very, very good for a long, long time. It's been years, honestly, that this hero has been picked as a carry and as an offlaner. Even when they changed the ags, it used to be a different ags, then they gave it a whole different burst ags and all the different stuff, and all that time it was good. It's finally been nerfed enough that it's basically just fallen off a cliff from the carry position. I still think it's picked as an offlaner sometimes, but it's not good as a carry really anymore. There's just better heroes, and it's not doing and bursting and getting the farm and doing all those things that it once did, and the numbers are just way worse, so it's not viable. Tiny, not really a carry anymore. It's finally gone away. People realize, yeah, this hero, the carry version of the hero, has been nerfed so much. It seems like every once in a while it gets one buff as a carry and just comes back, and people are like, oh, it's pretty good. But I haven't liked it for a while. I feel like you have to just be able to burst people and do ridiculous right-click damage and be able to sit there and hit them. And a lot of times in pubs, I feel like that doesn't happen. You don't have the coordination with your team to get that to actually work, where, you have your combo, but then you need other people to stun and set up and do these things so you can actually click people. And I just feel like that never happens. And now that damage is not nearly what it was. Wraith King, I just feel like these days it's more of an offlaner in a lot of ways. People are trying to make the non-skeleton facet work as a right clicker, and I just don't love it, honestly. Every time I see it, I love when the enemy picks it. Sometimes I'll see it in pubs and I'm like, great, you just picked like a useless hero that I feel like doesn't do much. There are times where it dominates lanes and it feels like it does ridiculous amounts of damage, and the enemy can end, or the team that picks Wraith King can end in 25 minutes because it just does insane damage. Like, it's like two-shotting people. But that's like an ideal game where everything goes right and you win every lane and you're farming like crazy. Like, that's not viable every single game. That's not going to happen every single game. I think more of what the hero is trying to do these days is the bone whatever the bone facet is, the skeletons, farming, using ags to help your team. Like, I think that's more of what this hero's doing in the last few months and how this hero's kind of developing. And so as a carry, I really don't like it. Troll, one of those heroes that I never believe in Troll. Every time it kind of goes up to C and B tier, I'm like, just guys, I always shit talking because I'm like, just wait. It's going to drop back down. People are going to realize that it's trash. I was considering maybe putting it C tier, but I hate it so much that I'm always going to knock it. You know, even if it deserves, if it can even be justified to put it D, I'm going to put it D. And I'm putting it D because, like, yeah, okay, maybe it could be C. You could argue, but I don't care. This hero's bad. Stop. Like, there's so much power creep. Just give me control during my ultimate. I have to say this every tier list. I say it every time. I'm going to keep saying it every time until they change it. Just give me control of my ultimate. It's not going to make the hero broken. If you change this hero right now and you gave the hero perfect control of the ultimate, it would not be S tier. It wouldn't. It just would not be S tier if you gave it perfect control of the ultimate and could just actually just do everything you wanted. Like, I'm just telling you, it wouldn't be S tier. There's just no way. It's just not a good hero, I think. I mean, maybe it would be, and I'm completely wrong. I'm open to being wrong, but I bet they change that tomorrow with no other nerfs. And okay, maybe it's A tier. Okay, great. But it's not S tier. Like, I don't think it gets picked in every single game in like pros or anything like that. So why don't they just do that? Just give it to us. Stop making the hero weird. It's been weird for like 8 years. Like, stop it. Razor, not a great carry. More of an anti-carry. It just feels like this hero doesn't really have a position. You can pick it as carry. It's just awkward. Like, your farming is weird. If you get your items, you're great. But I just don't think you get items. Dragonite, I was debating even like removing it from the list or like putting it F tier, but you can still kind of pick it. People are still picking it as a carry here and there, but it's just fallen off a cliff since, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, whatever, when it was just like dominating every position. PA, absolute trash. People are still picking it because they like the hero, and you can still carry in pubs. Like, it does work in pubs at times because it is just really good at blowing people up. So that is good, okay? And if it's a really, really good game for break and getting ags, okay, that can still maybe work. So I understand why people are still picking it, but the win rate is trash, and I just think it's a bad hero with bad design right now, and I kind of hate what they did to it, so I'm putting it D. Again, another one of those heroes with Troll, maybe you could argue it's C, but I just don't like it. And then Chaos Knight, it's just awkward. It feels like it's a bad carry, more of an off lane, but then even then it's not good, and then they're trying to like push the weird support Chaos Knight, which I don't think that's really working. I don't know. It's just awkward to me. I don't love the hero. I like the hero. I want to play the hero. I want it to be good, but it's just not. Pudge, I decided to take it out of F tier just because I think Pudge is overall a decent hero, and I don't think it's that bad as a carry. If something like Bristleback's all the way down with Pudge, I think that makes sense right now. I think Pudge, you could totally get away with it as a carry with the Ags and stuff like that, but it's probably just better in almost every other position. Sniper, again, I think I had it F tier, but I think it still deserves, like, you could totally pick it as a carry in very rare games, so I decided to put it here, even though I don't love seeing these heroes as carry very much, and I think they aren't great. It is still viable in some sense. And then lastly, we have Lone Druid. I almost might take this off the carry tier list because it has been played as like off lane, mid, and carry. But I think carry's the worst one, and it might almost just go away. Like, I don't even think, are you even picking it carry ever? Like, I don't even know. So you could honestly just argue that it could be deleted. But it's just one of those heroes that I don't think is very good in general, and can play any three of the core roles, and they're all relatively even in a sense, even though the builds might be a little bit different. I'm not a huge fan of the hero. But in pubs, hey, if you want to play this hero and you like the hero, though, up to like 4 or 5K, maybe you could totally stomp with the hero, just like from any position. Like, it is good in that way. People don't know how to deal with it. But if you know what you're doing and you really practice the hero, but overall, just not great. Then lastly, for F tier, we have Magnus. I could delete this hero from the tier list, honestly. I probably will right now. So Magnus is just bad because it was a carry for a little bit of time, and then they nerfed the empower, and they just nerfed the damage it does, so now it's just not a carry anymore. It's basically just gone. It's just not a carry. Then Ricky, just really bad. Just terrible farmer, has to gank, doesn't scale, it feels like, as well, but needs to get the items, needs to try to delete people, but just doesn't. It's just why would you pick Ricky? It's just bad. Bloodseeker dead ever since they did the switch of the Ags and the Shard. Still dead even to this day, and I hate that they did that. They should switch it back and just have it nerfed. Wind Ranger probably could even be deleted from the carry position, maybe. I don't know. I just don't think it's a carry really anymore for the most part. But it's one of those weird heroes that doesn't really have a position. It's just awkward. Like, are you picking this off lane? Or are you picking it mid? I guess mid would be the position. I don't know. It's just very weird. But then people are playing it support too, which I don't personally love. But yeah, and then Naga, just a very bad illusion hero overall. They made some changes to make PL a little bit viable. I'm kind of waiting for them to get Naga back in the game because it's really not good and hasn't been for a while, other than the patch with the Ags and the as a support and stuff like that. And so it's still F tier, has been for a while. And then Arc Warden, they changed it recently, and it's just been absolute trash. It's been a terrible change that makes it very bad. I mean, in terms of terrible, I don't mean like, I personally with this one, like I disagree with some of the changes with Kez, right? I don't think Arc Warden is one of those heroes. I think they're trying to experiment to figure out what to do with the hero, and they don't really know, and so they're just like throwing shit at the wall and trying to figure out what works. And I really don't have a problem with that because it is a very awkward, weird hero. And I'm not an Arc Warden player, so I'm not like mad about whether or not they changed it if I like this or like that. I know some Arc Warden players probably have an opinion on that, but I just don't personally have an opinion. But just in terms of the changes being bad, it just is bad because it's a terrible hero in that sense. And that, everyone, is the carry tier list for patch 7.39C. I know they're probably patching it this week. As I speak, they're probably uploading it to the server or whatever. They're probably pressing publish this week or next week maybe. But who knows? Maybe it'll be like a month and we won't see a patch because it's summer and they're like everyone's on vacation. Who knows? But TI is kind of right around the corner. So I would expect them to kind of be refining the meta until that happens. I'd be surprised if there was a huge patch before that. Maybe there's going to be a huge patch in the next like couple weeks or something. And that's like the last final big patch before TI. And then they like make one small adjustment or something. It's hard to say. But anyway, look forward to the other tier lists for the rest of the week. Even if they do patch it, I might still do the tier list for every position, even if they do patch it. So anyway, if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.